spellings and all that, you're not gonna correct any spelling. So if you're making mistake, oh Jesus. Anyway, so if there's someone that you know that your handwriting is like a doctor's prescription. Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. For Me Helps. So what am I going to be discussing on this channel today? So basically, it is just something that can help you make a faster decision, and also a wise one at that. And that's on either taking the CBT exam or taking the PBT exam. What do I mean by CBT and PBT? IELTS computer-based test or paper-based test? So which one should I take? Like, what? So I know it can be a very daunting decision and a very confusing one at that, but I would want you to stick with me to the end of this video. In this video, I'm going to be telling you the differences between both tests, what is different about the test, the two modes of delivery, and also the similarities. And at the end of the video, I'm also going to be sharing my own perspective. All right, so it's actually a beautiful day today, so all right, so I'm just going to be enjoying the sunlight as I make this video, and I hope you get to also feel the warmth of the sun in this video. But back to what we are going to go back to the discussion for today. So let's talk about it. When it comes to IELTS, one of the very first thing you need to know, apart from the fact that we have the general training test and the academic test, is the fact that we also have two mode of test delivery. We have the paper-based test, we have the computer-based test. When we mean paper-based, we mean to take your exam, the listening, reading, and writing section, basically nothing with the speaking section. For the listening, reading, and writing section, you have the option of taking the test using a pen and a paper, or a pencil and a paper, depending on which body you're registering with. So while for the computer-based test, you're basically only going to be using the computer system, like whatever answer you have, you'll be typing it in the computer. Everything, basically, you would be using a computer for the test. So that's more like the difference. While for my listening, reading, and writing section for paper-based, I am going to be using a paper and a pencil, or pen and pencil. For the computer-based test, you're basically going to be using a computer all through. You're not going to be using a paper or pencil at any point in time. So this is what the two tests mode of delivery, this is what they entail. Okay, now, so a lot of people kind of always at the point of registration and stuff like that, they are always like, oh, which one do I register for? Which one is good? Which one is bad? Like. So in this video today, I'm going to be sharing the differences between these two tests, two mode of delivery, sorry. I'm also going to be sharing the similarities. I think I would want to start with the similarities and go over to the differences, and then at the end I will tell you about, you know, what I kind of personally think as an instructor and also someone who has written the test over time. I'm going to be telling you, and I believe that this insight would help you make an informed decision. All right, so let's start with the similarities. Okay, so the first similarities I'm going to be sharing today between the both mode of test delivery is the fact that the content of the exam remains the same. It is the same. Like, if you're taking paper-based today and someone else is taking computer test today, your number one question is the same, your number two question is the same. So the content of the exam is the same. Also, the way you the grading system is also the same. So in terms of the content or the composition, if that's the right word, of the tests for both paper-based and computer-based is the same. that's what would make the test objective anyway, because it really would not make sense if those writing paper are getting it easy and those taking computer are getting it hard, or vice versa, whichever one. So the course content, the exam content remains the same for both test delivery. Okay, so the next one I like to share is the fact that the two forms of exam, now this is a little bit subjective, sort of, okay, because for those taking paper based, one of the advantage they have is the fact that they have their question booklet with them, which could also pass as something they can use to do their rough work and stuff like that. Now, when I talk about rough work, I think it would be most viable for the listening test as well as the writing test. Like personally, when I'm writing my exam for IELTS, there is like, I just need a rough sheet, because it helps, okay, for the listening test as well as the writing test. For the listening test, you would be required, okay, I think I'm already going into the details, so let me just go back to the fact that, okay, you get your question booklet pass as a rough answer sheet for the paper-based test. But for the computer-based test, there would be a piece of paper, just like what I have here, that would contain your login details once you get to the test venue. The IELTS exam, not the examiner this time around, the IELTS officials on site would give you a piece of paper that contains your login details, where you would have to write your basically what you're going to enter on the system to have access to the exam. Now, you can also use that as a rough sheet if you need it, either for the listening test or for the writing test. So I kind of feel that's the similarity, so it's a win-win. All right, so that's one of the similarity I want you to bear in mind. Now, the next one is, and I know this is going to bust a lot of people's bubble, is the fact that, just as in the case of the paper-based test, where nobody is telling you, oh, you spelled that right, oh, you spelled that wrong, and sometimes you might not even know, because, in terms of the exam rush and all of that, you might not know that you're actually misspelling some words, except you go back and check. It is the same for the computer-based test. So the spell check, I think, is this software or whatever, the spell check option on the system is going to be deactivated. So don't say, oh, I'm going to take the computer-based test because, it will help me to correct my spellings and all that. You're not going to correct any spelling. So if you're making mistake, oh Jesus. Anyway, but basically the spell check is going to be deactivated. So it is not, you are not going to know. So you just have to ensure that you're spelling right. So it's still the same for paper-based tests. So we don't get spell checking for paper-based, and we don't get spell checking for the computer-based as well. So that's another similarity. So now that we are done checking the similarities, now let's look at the differences. And I think at this point in time, you might start hearing my bias. No, it's not a bias, it's just, for me, it's more like an objective review for me anyway, because sometimes when I look at both mode test delivery, I kind of have a preference, and I always like to preach this reference to my student. But trust me, it is my opinion, it is my preference. You just have to do what works best for you. But now let's take a look at the differences. Now, the first one is the fact that the result time is not the same for both versions of this test. If you take the paper-based test, it will take about 13 days before you get your result. It will take 13 days for you to know your fate, okay? But for the computer-based test, it takes just about 3 to 5 days, and then you have your results. So I kind of know what the kind of anxiety people have when it comes to, I'm done writing my IELTS, or what's the result like? Did I make it? Did I not make it? And stuff like that. Yeah. So if you take the computer-based test, your struggle is gonna be less. But if it comes to the paper-based test, you have about 13 days before you know what's up. So that's the first one. Now, the second one, which is something I know a lot of people kind of like, hey, that's what we are talking about. Lateral. Anyway, the second difference is the fact that if you take the paper-based test, you would have to count your words yourself. Like, you need to count and know how many words you've written in the writing test anyway, not for the listening and reading. In the writing section, we know how important it is for you to write up to the word count limit. Now, if you're unable to write up to the word count limit, I kind of feel that it's more like you get a grave penalty. So it's quite like seriously important. So for the computer-based test, it counts your words for you basically. So as you type, underneath you see how many words you've typed, and this basically gives you an idea of how many, like, do I need to push more or I've done enough. So it basically shows you your word count limit as you type for the writing section. But for the paper-based test, at least I'm very sure if your paper is counting your word, like underneath as you're writing, you're saying it, I'm very sure you're going to throw that paper away. So basically, it doesn't count your words for you. You just have to do it yourself for the paper-based test. Okay, so that's another difference. Okay, the next one I'm going to discuss, the next difference is the fact that the timing for the listening test is not the same. And this is something that you have to really ponder about anytime you are choosing which of the tests you want to write. Okay, it might sound like, is that all? But I kind of feel it has like a significant impact on you maneuvering yourself on your test day. So now the first, what I'm about to talk about is the time difference in the listening section. Now, in the listening test, this is the part whereby you hear some recordings and then you have to answer some questions attached to those recordings. For the paper-based test, you get 40 minutes. This 40 minutes is going to be divided into two, such that you have the first 30 minutes and then the last 10 minutes. The first 30 minutes is dedicated to you listening and putting your answers down first on the question booklet. Like you're putting your answers, you're answering the questions on the question booklet, while the last 10 minutes is dedicated to you transferring those answers from the question booklet now to an answer sheet. So for me, it makes life easy. I listen, I do my rough note on the question booklet, coupled with the fact that it helps me keep track of what I am doing, rather than having a question booklet and then I'm not, then, you know, it can be a whole lot. And for the computer-based test, you don't get the same 40 minutes. You get 32 minutes. Now, this 32 minutes will be divided into two again, such that you have the first 30 and then the last 2 minutes. The first 30 is the same as those taking the paper-based test, because if you're taking the computer-based test, the first 30 minutes, you're expected to listen to the audio recording and type in your answers immediately. So you're listening to the audio recording, and once you get your answers, there is no rough note for you to do it, and then you type in your answers immediately. And you might wonder, but you said the other time that we can use our login book for jotting down answers. Just hold that thought and hear this. The last 2 minutes is not basically for you to transfer any answers. It is basically for you to cross-check your answers. So if you've used that login details to write your question 1 to 40, 2 minutes is not enough to transfer that on a computer into a computer system. So you have, for computer-based tests, you have to type in your answers immediately, like as you get them, while the last 2 minutes is basically for you to cross-check. And then for the paper-based test, 30 minutes to put down your answers into the question booklet, and for 10 minutes to transfer onto an answer sheet. So it's your choice. All right, so this is the part where I get to give my 1 cent, my opinion concerning what I think is the best. And please, it is my opinion. But in as much as it is my opinion, I just want you to know where that opinion is coming from and how it has been formed. Now, my opinion, I believe, has been shaped by my experience writing the exam, as well as the fact that I've been able to coach like a good number of students, okay, and they basically feedback, and I kind of have an idea of how the whole thing works. So basically it's coming from that angle, and I just want to share. Now, the first thing you want to understand is, does the mode of exam that I take, does it affect me? Is it going to affect how easy or hard I find the exam? The answer is yes. Even though the content, the question, and everything remains the same, the how you are going to find the exam either hard or easy would also be affected by the kind of test you're taking. How so? Now, let's assume that you're someone that you've not really and another thing that a lot of people tend to say is that, oh, at work I use a computer, like I've been using computer all my life and all of that. And please know this is Nigerian perspective anyway. I've been using computer all my life, so I think I can work this out. Oh, well, yes, good. But trust me, it is not enough. The fact that you've been working with a computer system all your life is not a ticket or a pass for you to take the computer-based test. My best advice for people is, if you are thinking of using the computer, taking the computer-based IELTS test, try as much as possible to ensure that that is the only thing you are using at the point, or like at the stage of preparation. You are like practicing listening, reading, writing at home, like preparing for the exam. Ensure it is always on a computer system. Never use a pen and a paper while practicing. And in a way, it helps shape your mindset. But if you're someone that while practicing you've always been using paper and pencil, and you're thinking like, because you have workings of how a computer system works, it's also going to no, it doesn't work like that. In fact, you are going to struggle big time. So you want to ensure that whatever it is that you're practicing with is what you are also going to be using on your exam day, and then you'll be fine. I feel the paper-based test is the best. I believe that this helps with thought process, which is very important when it comes to the listening test. For the reading test, you might be able to find your way around, because with a few clicks, you're good to go. But for the listening test as well as the writing test, I kind of feel the paper-based test is the best. It helps organize your thoughts. It helps work as fast as possible, coupled with the fact that I also I think I call myself a tech savvy, but even at that, when I'm working on the IELTS test, I kind of find it hard to process my thought and also use a computer system at the same time. Okay, if you're good with this, like I said, please go right ahead. But if you kind of feel like, because anyone who has practiced the listening test over and over again, you find out that sometimes if you're not careful, you're looking at the system or reading the question, and like taking your attention away from the audio recording can mess up with your head. So I feel like taking the paper-based test to a very large extent helps. Couple the fact that for the listening test, you are multitasking, you're listening, reading, and writing almost at the same time. Okay, so you don't want to add like a computer system and stuff like that, like it's working all to it. It can throw you off balance if you are not careful. Okay, so just try as much as possible to stick with what works for you. Okay, now, like I said, I kind of feel like the paper-based test is better, is the best, my personal opinion, like I said. But there are some few instances, there are some few scenarios whereby, you know, I strongly recommend that you take the paper-based as a computer-based test. Now, the first reason why, or the major reason why we have the computer-based test is the fact that it helps the body, the IELTS body, designed that to help combat illegible handwriting. That's one of the things. And also, I kind of feel like there are other reasons, but one of the major is to help combat illegible handwriting. So if you're someone that you know that your handwriting is like a doctor's prescription, please take the computer-based test. And a lot of people feel they have bad handwriting, but they actually don't. So give it to someone, maybe like 2-3 people to read, and if they say, you know what, I can see what you're writing, it simply means I strongly recommend that you take the computer-based test. Another set of people that I always recommend should take the computer-based test are those that need a result like ASAP. So there are some situations whereby you realize, I need my result as fast as possible, like I really need it. There's a deadline to meet and stuff like that. So these set of people, I also recommend that they take the computer-based test, because it helps in terms of, the result is out in 3 to 5 days and they are done. So basically just take the computer-based test and you get your result as fast as possible. So for me, if you have a legible handwriting and you do not really need your test like very fast, my advice is, I kind of feel you should stick to the paper-based test. Yes, like I said, the mode of test delivery would impact the level of difficulty. So you want to stick again to what works best for you. If you've been working with a computer system, you know it workings, and you feel that's the confidence that you have in taking the CBT test, please go right ahead, but tread carefully. And if you're someone that you don't like, in fact you don't even know where they are pressing and all of that, trust me, stay away from it. Imagine if the answer to the question is reproduction in the listening test and you don't know where R is, you don't know where E is. I am still struggling to master my ASDF when it comes to the computer system, and in fact it's horrible. And then you don't even know where the space bar or stuff like that is, and you want to take the computer-based test. It is a no-no, because at the end of the day, sometimes it might not be that you do not know the answer to the question or you did not hear the answer to the question, but because you missed something. And remember, the audio recording in the listening test will not pause and all of that, and then you're just struggling to know where do I go. And so for me, it might not give you the true test result, so it might not really be like a true test of your ability. Okay, so if you don't know how a system works, and or perhaps you're not so good at it, please stick to paper-based. Okay, it is not like stepping back into the 90s. It's just about choosing your battles carefully. We've come to the end of this video, and this is something that there's actually nothing in IELTS that I can keep going on and on and on about, but I kind of feel like I highlighted the most important point and the most important detail, and I hope you get the gist. So if you found this video helpful so far, if you've been able to pick a thing or two from what I've discussed so far concerning the paper-based test and the computer-based test, please leave it a thumbs up, share this video, like this video, subscribe to my channel for more, and just basically support me. All right, so basically support this channel by liking this video, subscribing to this channel, and sharing this video. And basically on that note, we've come to the end of this video, and I would see you again in my next video. Bye for now.